Yo, everyone. What is up today?
Yo.
What a freaking awesome episode we have today. Isaac Painter, CISO at Aumni Fund, which was recently acquired by JP Morgan Chase.
That's right.
No big deal, right? Awesome. And we're going to, man, dude, I'm so excited to have you here today.
Yeah,
thanks.
it's
Good
an
friend.
honor. I'm
We
glad
have
to be here.
a huge history together. And so I've seen, we've been through a lot together, man. So it's great to be, it's great to share some of that today. So anyway, so anyways, you guys just got acquired by JP Morgan and that's been crazy. But today, Isaac, I want you to tell us a little bit about your backstory, right? How you got into security, how, this role that you have, what's it like doing InfoSec at a startup? I mean, there's so much to talk about, so much to unpack. But let's dive in. So tell us a little bit about how you got into cyber.
So when I was going to Utah Valley University and I was studying accounting, I was like, I'm gonna be an accountant and I'm gonna be a bookkeeper. And it was actually more just like I just wanted to understand the more technical side of the business. I didn't really want to be an accountant, but not really knowing where I was gonna go with it. And at the same time, I was working for a PCI DSS company. Mm-hmm. And
Security Metrics, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Great company.
Yeah. Great company. So I was walking people on the phone through questionnaires, painstaking job when you have to walk like a bed and breakfast mom pa shop through like a questionnaire D and like they don't understand what like a firewall is or a DMZ. And you're just like, and you're not allowed to say this, but you're like, just use PayPal, it'll make your life so much easier, but you're not allowed to say that. Yep. So, but yeah, that's where I kind of got like my feet wet. It started becoming pretty interesting. And then they also did vulnerability scans. They kind of had like this Frankenstein of a vulnerability scanner where like they combined 3 or 4 different like Nessus and Saint and like all into one. And then they did vulnerability scans on people's networks. And so I kind of got into that. Eventually I was like verifying false positives and like dealing with escalations and not all of them were false positives. A funny short story is actually one time I had this really irate customer who was like, the port's not open. Like it's not open. And I'm like, well, it's open. And I knew it was because I'd gone to their IP and their port and I was staring at them through their video cam that was up in the corner. And the guy's like, his hands are in the air and he's yelling at me.
This is before Zoom. Is the quality good? Is it like just like that, or is it pretty smooth?
I think it was pretty smooth from what I recall. But it was like I'm sitting there looking at the guy. I'm telling him like, look, your security camera port is open. It was like, and it was like a default admin and password too. So I'd like just logged in and I couldn't tell him that I was like literally looking at him. And so it was doing things like that, just verifying that like, yeah, this is actually like legitimate. You've got this port open. Verifying and just proving to the customer that like they needed to fix it. So anyway, I got my accounting degree. I had like this security experience. And so I went to University of Arizona to do like a master's in accounting with an emphasis in information systems and security. And they were like a really good IS program. And it was really awesome. So then from there, I kind of just went into like auditing of like accounting information systems. Worked for Protiviti, where I did exactly that. Did some more like SOX, ITGC stuff. And then that's where the history with Kenny started. I was driving home on the freeway one day and I got a call from my boss at Protiviti and said, I need you to get on this call right now. And then I heard Kenny's voice and he's like, I need to bring a bunch of Protiviti guys on to help us with some work on the common controls framework. And I thought, hey, this is cool. Like I've always wanted to go into that like cool Adobe building in Lehigh, Utah. And so they became like my main client at that point. And funny story actually was I had other clients I was working with and Kenny didn't always have work for us to do. And so it was like 30 hours, but then I had like 5 bosses at once. And so they always wanted me to do things. And so finally Kenny just said, you're going to just bill 40 hours to us because I'm tired of you doing other work. When I need you, I need you. And so that's what I started doing. And then I didn't get into work, and I was just like on Adobe only.
Yeah, I mean, this is all like water under the bridge, right? So it's like, who cares, right? I don't know if I was allowed to do that, but like, I don't know, man.
We can edit that part out, right?
No, man. It's raw. We want the truth and nothing but the truth. So help. Yeah.
Yeah.
We want the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was close, but it was enough where it was like, Isaac, you're billing 30 and you have 10 remaining. We have work for you to do. And so Kenny, wanted work, and I was like, I got to finish this for the other client. But yeah, we got rocking and rolling on the CCF, and then
you and Zosh, dude, we need Zosh right there. Zosh, you're coming on this podcast. Okay, man. Zosh,
that's
dude.
right.
That was
yeah.
Awesome.
So Zosh didn't care about the rules, and he just went ahead and applied to work at Adobe. And I left Adobe to work for another company, and then 2 months later, Kenny called me up as like, hey, we got a position open, and I went over. So then I started working for Kenny for the next little while.
I did not realize at the time, like how much that would have disrupted kind of that model. Like, dude, people hated me because, well, like Zosh came to me and we were having so much damn fun, man, on this project that we were doing that was really changing things.
Yeah.
Right. And Zosh was like, I had the rec open, and Zosh was like, hey, man, I want that rec. So I remember talking, hey Dan, I have some news and you're not gonna like it. And so funny.
Yeah, and I think that led to like at least 2 more Protiviti people coming over to Adobe.
Oh yeah,
that. Yeah.
And I didn't even
not on your team, different team.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it, but like that role, like as like senior manager, right? You're not the partner, right? You're like kind of senior manager, so you're responsible for quality, but you're also responsible for selling. And like, oh my gosh, dude, I feel so bad now because like I probably at least should have like considered the whole team. But I remember when you came, someone from Protiviti was like, hey, Isaac Painter is working at Adobe now. And I got an email from Dan that says, well played, Kenny. Well played.
As though it was part of some scheme. It wasn't at all.
I promise, but it was so fun. The optics weren't that great, right?
Yeah.
The optics are never that great when I have my when I'm involved.
Well, it is what it is. Well, when I left that previous company, they were pretty pissed that I worked there for like 3 months and then left. But they had basically told me like I didn't even need 2 weeks. They said you're out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. They kicked me out the door. But
no, man. But
it's fine. It's fine. It was no hard feelings.
It's no hard feelings, man.
Yeah.
It's just business.
That's crazy, man. So like after Adobe, where did you go?
Yeah, so I was at Adobe for 6 years. I was on Kenny's team for about a solid year. And then there was like some stuff that came up around policy, and Kenny was like, hey, we need like one of our guys to kind of like be in this. And like, there wasn't a lot of traction going on, and they were trying to build out like the Archer GRC policy tool, and it wasn't going well. And yeah.
PTSD. What's that meme? We need to insert the meme of the dog, sniffing the cupcakes. Have you seen that one? The dog sniffing the cupcakes, the PTSD one?
I think so, yeah.
Let's find it. Right there. Let's just put that in right here, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dark place.
That wasn't like, I think the whole entire Archer GRC project was like just struggling all around. There was like adoption and trying a lot of customization and stuff. And so, anyway, one thing led to another, and eventually they just really needed someone to own it. And so, after about a year on Kenny's team, I moved to another team, that was more like on the security, like business operations side. And then eventually Kenny was part of a team that became officially GRC before it was like more internal audit. Mm-hmm. And so, if I had stayed on that team, it would have make sense for me because that's basically what I was doing. I was doing GRC. Right. But yeah, I did a lot of policy work. I basically brought together like all of Adobe's policies into like one umbrella. There was like fractions of policies all throughout the company. I mean, we had the Acrobat team that had their own policies, the Adobe Sign team that had their own policies. They had, what was the name? Adobe Connect had their own policies. Mm-hmm. And so they were all like doing their own SOC 2s and their own policies. And it was just like very like not like corporate level policies at all. They were very like fractured.
Yeah.
So I brought all that together. And
yeah. How does that like, when it is fractured, like what are the implications of that? Right, when everybody's kind of guessing, what do I have to do? Right, like what am I supposed to do? Like,
yeah, like, well, look, it makes it impossible for GRC because it's just like you're referring to this policy, which is in conflict with this other team's policy, which is in conflict with the corporate policy, and then nobody can find who even wrote that policy 6 years ago.
Right,
and so it just it was a mess, and so kind of built that out, and I think. I don't know where it's at now, but moved on to other roles and into like security training for like role-based training for developers, and then like the more security awareness training, and then had an opportunity to step into like a acting chief of staff role to the CISO. They had some transition with their CISO
at Adobe. That's pretty big, right?
And then so fair amount of like project management. For a time, I did some like penetration testing program management. That was hard, mostly because it was just a lot of, I don't know.
What was hard
steps.
About it? Yeah.
I think it was mostly just that it required a lot of setup, and the access was really hard. It's like you got to give the pen testers the right access to the right systems, and so like to kind of like unravel all the red tape and around that became quite difficult. It's like you want to start the pen test, but they don't have the access, and then convincing people, why do you need to give a pen tester access? Aren't they supposed to pen test? So any pen testers maybe listening to this later is like, oh my gosh, I hear that all the time.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And so I did that for a time as well. And then
it's a good way to get a green checkbox on your pen test is like, don't give them any credentials. Just try to.
Yeah. I mean, they do try to do that, but they also have to like assume account compromise too. And
yeah. Right.
But so that's in a nutshell kind of leading up to, and then Kenny and I connected again. Kenny was doing some work for the company I work for now, Aumni. This was 2.5 years ago now.
Yeah, with Rob and Jake.
So Rob Wise, who's the CTO at Aumni, and Jake Source, who's the VP of engineering.
A little bit at the time, it was like Kelsey was involved sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh,
cool.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I have to think about that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kelsey just barely put in his notice. He's leaving.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but
what a great guy.
Yeah.
That guy, they just don't make him like him. He, I mean, very, very minimal, like, interaction with me. But, like, when we did some things, with the risk solutions framework for Aumni, I think it was at the time, I don't know. I don't know how detailed we can go, right? But, like, pretty big banks, right? And we were helping kind of close those deals.
Yeah.
And he was just so happy, and he gave me like a huge DoorDash card. And I'm like, I can actually use this DoorDash. Like it was like, I was like crazy. I'm like, I'm going to do that for people anyways, but he's just a great guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. A real genuine individual. Yeah. Aumni owes a lot of his success to him, and also Tony, the other founder, but and Rob and
Rob,
a million other people. Yeah.
Rob, love you, man. Rob and hearts.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where Kenny was like, hey, I've got a client who's looking for kind of like a security leader. And I said, look, I think I'm going to probably move on eventually, but I don't think this is the right company. And then Kenny was like, well, it's fine. Let's just go to lunch anyways. And then Kenny was bold enough to bring it up again at lunch. And I was like, okay, fine, let's have a conversation. And I met these guys, and actually the first time I met with them, they were in this like room that had like a blue light, and it was like just blue. Like it was like this really blue room. And I was like, what a weird company. Like, but we laugh about that now. It was just the room that they had at the time. It was just the space they were in, but had no reflection on who they were as individuals. I just thought that was their preference to be in a blue room. But anyway, so Kenny, did his thing and promoted me, which was really nice of him. And they said, well, if Kenny says that he trusts you, we trust you as well. So they didn't really go through that much of a rigor of a process. And I made the jump and learned a lot about venture capital ever since. And we have pretty diverse customer base. We have some who don't give a crap about security.
Yeah.
And then it's not even a second thought for them. And then we have some who are like the larger enterprise customers, or it's like that's like their first thought. That's like the first thing that they ask about is security.
Yeah. And why is that? Like, so like the data that you guys take, like, do you think that it's legitimate, that concern? Or?
Yeah. So there are some SEC like security regulations. So I think once you're over 25 million assets under management, then you are under the scrutiny of the SEC. And then they have a lot of regulations, some of them being security, but it's more like really like ITGC kind of stuff. And it's
the basis of it, right? I mean, risk, it all comes down to risk.
Right. And so I think there will probably be more strict and defined regulation eventually, but right now it's pretty undefined. But regardless, that's kind of the catalyst for some of these customers. But for the most part, when it comes to like the private markets, it's about negotiating power. So it's like I've talked to some of our customers trying to understand like, why is it that you want to protect your data? And that was one reason, was like, okay, if they arrange a deal with a particular individual or investor, one of their clients, and then they don't give that same deal to another client, and that's leaked, that really hurts their reputation and their negotiating power.
Right.
And then some of this is transactional information about like how many shares one person bought or what kind of provisions another person was given. And so they want to keep that individualized and don't want it to leak. And then obviously the other venture capital firms are all competing in some way as well. So they don't want the data to see one other person's, like they might be investing in competitors. And so, so there's a fair amount of that. The other reason, which I thought was interesting, is you've got some firms where it's like, let's just take, for example, like a high net worth individual started a firm. And I don't know if this is one of our firms, but like, let's just say little LeBron James, for example.
Yeah. LeBron.
Yeah.
Bronny.
He doesn't want people to know what his venture capital firm is investing in on his behalf. So it's like, and again, I'm not saying this is the case. I don't even know if we have business with his venture arm, but
right.
Probably.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like I heard that. Maybe I'm not making that up, but
let's just assume.
Just
for fun.
Yeah. For fun. So, but it's like he's investing in something that maybe is like politically controversial. It's like, oh, he's investing in coal.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, LeBron James believes in this. And so they also want to protect their data from that respect as well. And so, and then in the last year, we've really hit like a churning point at Aumni where we've had a data science team, and then I've worked closely with them to say, okay, you guys, your responsibility is to present dashboards to customers in a way that only they can see their data. But then we're anonymizing and aggregating that data for like, for more like research purposes or trying to understand what's going on in the market. And so,
which is why your tool is so awesome.
Yeah.
Right. So the Aumni solution is
right.
incredible.
And that's ultimately
right.
JP Morgan, when they acquired us, it was like, you guys are sitting on data that doesn't exist anywhere else.
Right.
For the private markets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible innovation. Right. So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like confidentiality, you mentioned privacy, really important. Right. And so you can't have privacy without security. Right.
Right.
So
that's
the first step.
Keeping their data confidential, privacy from like a personal data standpoint, we do collect some of that, although none of it's like sensitive. It's mostly just like what's inherently in a document, someone's signature, someone's full name, their business address, business email.
No big deal.
So, the law sees it as sensitive, but probably not like up there on a classification schema.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. You mentioned, dude, so like, I don't know. Keaton, you probably have some questions too, but I just want to dive into this one. Going back to your security metrics days, like you said, dude, just use PayPal. It'll make it so much easier. So how important is that mentality where you're finding those solutions that work, right? That they're like, hey man, like here's grandma's cookbook of how to implement security. And it's not like an SEC regulation Part D. It's not a PCI thing. It's like, dude, just use a tool that works, that actually takes care of that. How important is that as a CISO at a now just exploding company? How important is that mentality for you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I mean,
I don't know if my question makes sense, but
yeah, I think back actually to like the Adobe days. They were creating like these different tools that they were like developing in-house, where it's like, if you just went and bought this tool, yeah, you pay a little bit more like on paper, but like the direct cost looks more, but the indirect costs are costing us so much more at Adobe to like try to develop this in-house.
Develop it in-house and then secure it
right.
And make it enforce confidentiality and enforce all of those things that this startup, I mean, we're going through it. It's grueling.
Yeah.
Right. You have to do those things. And so why would you do that to yourself every time?
Yeah. It's like if the HR team were to say, we're going to create our own HR system. And it's like, and then the security team, like, it's like, you guys are going to create your own HR. So yeah, we're going to hire our own developers and we're going to create our own version of Workday.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like thinking about it from that respect. And so often in security, some of these engineers who are also sometimes developers are like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go create my own like security tool. I think that can work, but it has to be like very low level. The moment it starts getting a lot more nuanced, it's like you might as well have just bought a tool.
Right.
That can just do it for you. And yeah, it looks more on paper, but the labor costs that you're not accounting for there. And then not only that, like you said, it's not as well refined as like a tool that maybe you could go buy.
Sometimes, like, I guess on the flip side, the only thing I was talking to a high up at Google, and he said, like, look, because, you know, he was complimenting Paramify and kind of how we're approaching things. And so we talked for a while, and he's like, look, for us, like, if we're thinking about buying a tool, you know, we're huge, right? So now we have to think about how are we going to integrate this into our process, right?
Yeah.
So there are cases where it's so big, right? Like it's just big tech where it's like, you know, they're like a software company, so they all build their own things, but that's expensive and it requires a ton of capital to do.
Yeah.
Right. So in those cases, but for most everyone else, like 95% of the time, don't be in the business of authentication.
Yeah.
Don't be in the business of, HR.
Right. I think when you're a company like Google too, you're trying to be more novel and innovative. So it's like, we looked at the solutions and not offering what we're hoping for. And it seems like that's often the case where it's just like, we want what we want. And so we're going to create it.
Yeah, we'll create it, and it won't necessarily be it won't be built with like, you know, the consumer in mind, right? It'll be built with like, hey, this is our mission, in mind, right? This is our mission, and we're gonna do this, and we think this is gonna help, right? And so, I don't know, it's kind of cool, right? It would be nice, right? But you know, we don't have infinite resources. You know, I always say this. I've been saying this in all of my trainings. I just did a training. And I refer to the things that I've read in the past that have nothing to do with security, but in life, you can have almost anything you want. You have a set of resources that you can use to get what you want. I totally believe that. You can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. It's all about priority. And so, I don't know. I just think, you know, it was a really quick anecdote that you said, like, just use PayPal. Not supposed to, but there's so much wisdom in that. Don't try to do that on your own. Right. You know.
Yeah.
So I just did this training because we started Paramify Fundamentals and we're just sharing it with everyone. But I find myself having to explain this all the time, right? So when you're talking about risk, and so what better way to use it than Star Wars, right? So we talked about, the Death Star, so you can check it out if you want. But
okay,
one of the things that we have, we're just eating up that clock, man.
Yeah, we're good.
We're eating it up. What was I going to say? Yeah, so
Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars. What's really hard is qualitative risk and then quantitative risk, and like how do we classify what's important? And most of the time, doing an actual quantitative risk, this is our exposure, is so freaking hard. But at the same time, qualitative is not always very useful. It's like your street smarts and it's your gut feeling, right? It's like, how important is this? High, low, moderate, right? What does that mean? So when you're talking risk and like what's important with Rob and with Kelsey and others, like how do you do that? I mean, it's something that we're all trying to do better.
Yeah, I try to steer pretty clear of a lot of the security terminology when I'm talking to other parts of the business, and instead,
why is that? Right?
Yeah, it's because they don't care, and not their fault. It's like they have their goals, their priorities, and what they see as a vision for the company, and so I really try to go back to like, okay, what are the core strategies and goals for the company, and linking it back to that is what's most important, because that's what's going to get attention overall. So like when that, like I'll just give a really simple example. In like the last 6 months, one of our goals is like retention.
Okay.
Retention is like huge. So retention and acquisition of new, I mean, that's probably it's a pretty clear goal for probably most companies, I would imagine.
Retaining your customers.
Retaining our existing customers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then retaining existing customers, and then acquiring the new customers. So those are pretty obvious goals I think most companies would strive for, but it became like, let's not focus on anything else. Like all goals and all objectives point to that objective.
Interesting.
And so, so I was like, okay, like if I'm going to have the time of the day and say like a department heads meeting, and I would like to give a security update like every 6 months, for example, I'm going to make that presentation about how security ties into those goals. And it's like, okay, so the example I was going to give, like recently in the last 6 months, we started tracking every time a deal closes, whether or not the security team was involved with that. And then we have a metric that counts how many deals have closed in part due to the security program.
Whoa, interesting. Okay. So what did you find in that? That's crazy.
Yeah, we're probably tracking. So we have like a KPI that we use, and it tracks like the last 15 days. And I look at it about once a week, and we probably track 2 to 3 deals closed due in part to our security program.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So, and one of the ways we track that is like we don't allow our sales team to send our security package. Like we could give them the collateral, but one, we want to track it, and two, there's like confidentiality issues. You got to have them sign the NDA and stuff. But it's also because like we want to know where those are getting sent, and also like we don't want people saving like an old version on their desktop and sending it.
Right.
So there's a number of reasons.
When it's not true anymore.
But the biggest reason is we want to track who's getting this, and then once we see, oh, the deal closed, oh, yep. So we're tracking that in Jira.
So it's a positive correlation then, right? So with security involvement, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's anywhere from like, did we fill out a questionnaire? Did we fill a phone call? Did we send them our security package? Sometimes we don't even engage with them. We just like email them our package, which includes like a white paper, SOC 2, our ISO, a diagram, how to set up SSO. So it's just like,
they feel it just kind of, I don't know, I assume that just increases trust. Like so much.
Well, the way I see it is we want to overwhelm them with so much security collateral that they're like, oh yeah, I'm comfortable.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I've had customers where I just sat with them on the call for 30 minutes and they were like, okay, cool. This is great.
You need to, because perception is reality.
Yeah.
Right. Perception is reality. So not only do you actually need to do good, you need to make it easy for other people to understand that you're actually enforcing security. So that's where like a sticker is good, right? But they're commodities, right? SOC 2 stickers, ISO stickers.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes that's just going to be requirement or table stakes to have the conversation or engage with the security team. And at that point, the security team needs to have empathy and needs to be able to convey to someone, hey, let me understand what you're asking and let me show you how we do MFA. Let me show you how you, and that's just like so critical. So you're seeing a positive correlation with that. Like,
Oh, definitely. I mean, Kelsey, for example, even just came to me and he was just like, the sales team loves the InfoSec team because you help us sell product.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then, you know, I've even heard individuals say, like, we got to just stop filling out questionnaires. It's just ridiculous. It's boring. And I agree. It's kind of a racket, the whole thing. But, or like, it's like, at what point do we start saying no to customers? It's like, we don't stop, because if we can say that security helps sell product, which our CEO, Tony, also is like, yeah, I can see how it helps sell. Then it's easier for me to get budget for the tool we want to use on AWS to help us actually secure the company.
Right.
So it's not the other way around. It's not like we need to get better security, give us a budget. It's like, well, why do you need it?
Yeah.
It's just like, otherwise it's just seen as a cost center.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is not.
Go.
Oh,
yeah. It looks like we are like coming close to time, but I have a question. So let's say someone's listening to this that wants to start a career in InfoSec. Do you have any like recommendations for them on how to get into the industry? And
gosh, that's such a hard question, because there's so many people who do want to get into it, but every company's like, you got to have 2 years of experience. And like, I mean, I'm in that position too, where it's like, I don't know if I'm in a position to take a risk on someone. And so, but like, I don't have a lot of great advice there, other than just to say, like, kind of lift where you stand. So wherever you're at your current company, like if it's just have the opportunity to like look at or get involved in security, so you can throw it on your resume and say like, oh, I've done some security things at my current company that I'm at. Like try to get involved in that way. Definitely. And obviously getting some education or certifications goes a long way, since, you know, some might argue those are a racket as well.
Right.
But it's perception. Like you said, perception is reality. So people perceive you. And if you have some sort of certification, at least some experience, even if it's just like a security plus.
Yeah.
I like that quote. Lift where you stand. So just do whatever you can to get that experience.
Yeah.
When I did like my CISSP, which is, you know, probably it's a pretty good one, right? I mean, it's not everything, but it tells you, and I was excited about learning about it. But I also had a lot of experience consulting, and you did. You went right into it and started doing a thing, right? And so consulting companies always are hiring, man, almost always, almost in any economy. Yeah, they're a subject to the economy as well, but getting entry-level positions, that's what I say. I don't know your thought. It
That's
looks
true.
like it worked for you too.
There's some like companies out there, like Arctic Wolf is a good one.
Yeah.
They have a really lot of good entry-level positions, like helping people manage their SOC. Like totally. Those are great companies. And then you get your feet wet for a year or two, and then some security experience. But I would say that's really good.
That's awesome, man. Dude.
So fascinating.
Yeah. Dude, so Isaac, man, we got to ask this, right? AI is really important in InfoSec. I really like that, we were talking about risk earlier. Qualitative and quantitative are always going to be important, right? Qualitative, you need experience, someone who's been there, who's seen how it's worked. So for qualitative risk assessment is really important. So they can synthesize what they know and convey, align it with the business goals and talk to someone. But like quantitative is really important too, but it's so hard because humans are just bad with numbers and calculations. So for me, I'm really excited about AI and risk and cyber. What are some of the things that you are excited about with AI in the future? Are you guys using it?
Yeah, I mean, some of our developers are using it, although having been recently acquired by JP Morgan, they have a strong aversion to it because of the risks. And so up in the air whether we'll continue to use it in the way that we are, but we're using more like OpenAI, just like the API plugin, just to help developers like snippets of code, not like an entire like code base. But so we're using it in that respect. I helped it write. I used it there to help me write a job description. Just little things like that, at least a starting point. But I think what excites me most about AI where it concerns security is the ability to automate a great deal of the work that goes behind security that's not necessarily like it's noise. So like I read a paper the other day about like how SOCs are basically like SOC, like they're going to be replaced by AI because there's just all that analysis on the log level and
terrible job. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And I mean, it's like
watching some
of these tools help you find they're like, this could be legitimate. And then you have to go verify it. And it's like actually, or even like DAS scan, like false positives, like having an AI verify whether or not that is false positive or not. Like just a lot of time not wasted. But it's interesting to also think about like AI like malware and then AI like defense measures, and like the AI is like almost like battling with one each other and trying to outsmart each other. So it's like a little sci-fi there, but like it's just it's just interesting to think about how you're like on your computer, your workstation, there could be like a war going on between like an AI malware and like the AI built into like the anti-malware.
Dude.
But it like it's funny to think about, but like I think soon that will be kind of a reality.
Right.
Is like, yeah.
Dude. Isaac, thanks so much, man. I love you, man. It's great. Hopefully maybe we can have you on back and maybe bring a team member with you and we can do it again. It'd be great.
If you guys have any remaining questions, I think I probably got like 5 more minutes if you wanted to.
Yeah, man. Yeah, let's go, dude. Let's go. Let's get into the fun stuff. Okay. All right, man. So what let's just pull something out. You can go, Keaton, while I try to think of something on the fly.
Just along the lines of AI, let's just go a little more like theoretical. Where do you think AI could be in like a decade from now or 20 years from now?
Yeah, good question. Not one I've ever thought about before. Oh, yeah. I'm certainly not like deep into the AI study. I don't think it's going to be apocalyptic, like a lot of people say. It's just my personal opinion that ultimately anything that is created by a human is going to be just as imperfect as a human. And so it's not going to like suddenly become more intelligent than us and start like, taking over systems that result in like death and loss and like overheating of your house and like turning off your air conditioning. Like those things certainly can happen, but I think there's too much imperfection in AI. Like I actually heard this thing the other day about, I can't remember the term they use, but I'm just going to call it pollution, where it's like AI pollution, where it's basically there's so much content out there that is produced by an AI that the AI starts consuming itself. So it's like you take a photocopy of a picture and then a photocopy of the photocopy and a photocopy, and over time it starts to look really grainy and diluted. That's what happens to an AI as it consumes itself over and over again. And so it's like the quality becomes like, and then, that's when this writer's strike wins, right? Because it's just like, it's just garbage what it produces back. So you still have to have someone like a human mind powering the original content ultimately.
Sounds like, so, sorry, Dalton. You have like 70% fact, but then like 30% cringe, right? And that cringe gets amplified as it like consensus. So we see, we talked about this in our last podcast with, we had a Next Level AI. Those guys building an awesome company. And so we talked about how we could build an AI bot to detect cringe on LinkedIn. And we think we'd have a lot of success with it, right? So anyways, pretty good.
That's the bolt-on you're going to put onto Paramify.
we're going to figure out a way to partner up with those guys. But yeah, man, it's pretty cool. So Isaac, you read a lot. I get good book recommendations from you. So why don't you share with your listeners, what are you reading right now? It doesn't have to be security related, or it could be, like, I don't know. What are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm reading a book called The Kingdom and the Crown.
Oh, yeah.
Very good book.
I like that book.
Yeah.
Yehuda. And
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He's a good character. So I'm reading that right now. Very good, just like spiritual book.
Mm-hmm.
But right before that, I read a book called Think Again.
Oh, okay.
By Adam Grant. Probably one of like top 10 books I've ever read.
Think Again.
What's like the theme of the book, or what is it
so
about?
The idea is that he promotes is too often in education, more particularly, we have these like textbooks or just these ideas in the world that it's just like, this is the truth, and like not questioning. Like this has to go, there's a lot of like confirmation bias that's going on and cycling over and over again. So it's like, I believe this, and I'm going to go out and search on Google to validate myself. And of course you're going to find it.
Right.
And so like just a really simple example, it's like people lost their minds when they found out Pluto wasn't a planet. Like people like freaked out.
Dude, Pluto will always be a planet, man. Are you kidding, man? I grew up with Pluto as a planet. It will always be a planet.
Yeah. So it's like, so just using that simple example, he just promotes this idea that like we need to be willing to think again about it, and like even kind of just letting go of like predispositions. So like he gives some really great examples. Like he walks through this guy who like met with like KKK members, an African American met with KKK members and convinced like 300 of them to leave the KKK just by sitting down and having lunch with them and convincing them to like think again that like not the black race is not inferior. Mm-hmm. And then another example like he gives is they did like this, he states this study, I think it was done at Stanford, about like what policy decisions made by presidents were actually like the best decisions. And they found that presidents who are willing to change their mind and think again actually resulted in the best policy decisions for the United States.
Wow.
And so it's just like, it's okay to change your mind. And so he promotes this idea as like, we all need to think more like scientists and understand that like our experiments will fail, and that's okay. And so it's a fascinating book, and he cites a lot of studies, but it's very, very good. I highly recommend it.
Yeah,
man,
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get it. It's on the docket already, man. Isaac Painter, everybody, thank you so much.
Yeah,
a round of applause.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, man. We'll see you hopefully again. Hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, that would be fun.
All right, brother.